different on my
All righty. Well, I'll tell you what, folks. If you miss the first 8 minutes, you missed the greatest show ever. But don't worry, we're going to try to remember a lot of this stuff. I'll tell you what, it was funny. Me and Ladarius are talking, and I'm looking at him going, I don't think I hit live yet. As I'm going into my tribe, and I'm going, yeah, I definitely did not hit live. Oops. Oh, my God. I tell you what, man. I definitely – I'm sorry. I'll take the boo. I'll take the boo-boo on that one. I tell you, sometimes people just need to understand. You're just going to step in it one day. So, and I did. So, thank you all for coming in. I was like, why are we not getting no time ticker, nothing? Am I missing something? And then I looked and I was like, go live. I'm like, oh, probably be smart if I went live. So I don't understand why the Facebook won't go up, but if, I've sent the link to funnel into YouTube. So folks, if you are watching, give me a minute. I'm trying to make sure we can get our Facebook crew also involved. Because this is just one of those. I screwed it up. I tell you what, man. Only me.
it's the weekend. It happens.
Yeah, it really is. It is, my friend. I'm so glad. You came along for the ride because we definitely needed it. All right, let's see. Come on, go to the link. I just want to make sure everything's working. We're good. We're live. Okay. We haven't lost our minds today. McAfee's about to get my foot up. I'm going to put my foot up McAfee's butt if I keep getting any more notifications. I will have to fix that in the morning or when I have money. Or I'll just get a dummy version. God, I can't believe I did that. Anyway. So, folks, like I said, the first 8 minutes was blockbuster. Now, Jon Chuckery is supposed to be coming in. He's in a few minutes. So we're just going to talk some stuff, have some, this is open forum. So we're just discussing the major headlines. Before we talked about SmackDown, during SmackDown, we got news of the releases. And unlike releases in the past, these weren't impactful. I hate to say it. But, it is what it is. And, do I see somebody? I see somebody. Ladarius, I hope you're ready. Hold on. We can't let this man in unless we bring him out properly. Thank you for coming, but hold on. Ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, the Georgia Rattlesnake himself. He is Jon Chuckery, my man. Thank you so much. I had to play the Disturbed version, so, and I think I got like 5
I was gonna say, that's the early 2000s version of the theme song. So,
but that was one of my favorite ones because that's when he became the heel Austin. Yeah, and it's like, it was like the craziest moment ever. Him teaming up with Stone Cold, or him teaming up with McMahon, and it wrote itself for a while.
he had talked about that he was feeling like his character was stale, and I don't know why he felt that way, but he talked about that he said that he was feeling stale, and at WrestleMania in 2001, when he shook McMahon's hand, he wanted to try something different, and McMahon allowed him to do it. I mean, it's crazy to think. I mean, here's the biggest baby face you've ever had since Hulk Hogan, and he allowed him to, do all of that stuff. But I mean, that's how much power Austin really had. And you know what? Honestly, like WWE for years after that took a nosedive in their business. I mean, their business actually took a hit after WrestleMania in 2001. Like they started on a downward spiral because nobody wanted to root against Austin. He's he's the all-time guy. Like he's the all-time, working man guy. I mean, so they didn't want to root against him. So, their business took a dive after WrestleMania in 01.
Yeah. And I mean, it's just one of those. I remembered that too, because I remember watching. I'm just going, why are they doing it? I mean, I wasn't mad. It's one of those you kind of have to go with the flow.
Right.
Because that's wrestling. Whatever you don't like, you'll end up liking if they do it right. I think one of the things that hurt also was Triple H getting hurt because they did that 2-man power trip. We never got a full conclusion with that either.
No. I mean, Triple H had torn the quad muscle.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was a brutal. I mean, I remember watching that match. That was brutal. Watching him gut his way through that match after he tore. I mean, he literally tore it right off the bone in his quad muscle. And listen, if you know about steroids and all these different things, it's not surprising that something like that happened. I've done steroids. I mean, you feel like you're invincible and things like that happen. And your muscles kind of outgrow your joints and stuff, and you're not able to put, like your muscles get so big that your joints can't support all of that. Like your joints don't just automatically grow along with your muscles and stuff. So you put so much more force and weight on that. And guys like Triple H, I mean, as jacked up as he was, in the early 2000s and stuff. I mean, he was just as big and thick as it could get. I mean, so again, you're going to take a toll on your body, and those are the things that happen. Undertaker went through some of the same things with the hamstrings and stuff like that. Like you get so big and thick that your joints just can't support everything.
Oh, I hear you. So let's talk about it. We just coming off WrestleMania, and we are in the new era of Triple H. I mean, they made sure told us that quite a bit of times, so I don't have a problem with that. And if we want to talk, look, this is open forum, so we can talk about anything. Because I do want to pick your brain, because I also know you are a fellow, I won't say a cult of Cornette, but I will say you definitely enjoy the listening aspects.
I'm a proud member of the cult. I will say I'm a proud member of the cult. I've tried to reach out to Jim a few times and try to get him on the show. Like I've literally tried, a couple times. I haven't gone through Brian, his co-host, but I've tried to reach out to Jim directly and try to get him on the show. Not been successful yet, but he's one of my targets that, if I get back on, I want to, he's one of the guys that I really want to talk to.
There were, you talked, I know you talked to, have you talked to Paul Heyman before?
I had Paul Heyman, I had Paul Heyman set up, and there was a change in his schedule, and we weren't able to hook up. This was I think a year ago right before WrestleMania that we were supposed to talk. I had him set up, and it kind of fell through at the last minute. I was not able to talk to, but I've talked to Cody. Yeah. I've talked to Chris Jericho. I've talked to a lot of different people. I mean, Drew McIntyre's been on the show a couple times.
You've had. I heard the interview with Bischoff. I've heard interview with Russo, which I was stunned. And then because
I've had Jim Ross on a few times. Mm-hmm. Listen, this has been one of the things about doing sports talk radio. I mean, we try to stay within our lanes and stuff like that. But when it gets to be kind of like like outside of Falcon season, the Braves are just kind of early in the year, or Hawks are kind of like right now the Hawks are finished up. Like you can get into some more of these kinds of things, and especially like around WrestleMania and stuff like that. I mean, you get into some of this stuff, and I've been privileged. I mean, whether it's Drew McIntyre or Cody Rhodes or Vince Rude, and I love talking to some of these guys behind the scenes, the Bischoffs and Jim Ross and Russo and some of these guys. Like I love talking, like behind the scenes stuff, and it's been great. Like that has been one of the things about doing sports talk radio that has really been fun, is being able to catch up with some of these people in the wrestling world. Awesome.
Well, Ladarius, like I was saying, John actually hosts a night show in Georgia, and like I said, it was 7 to 10, and then it was 7 to 9, or it was the night shift, but I enjoy it. So Chuckery, I gotta ask, man, where have you been? People are asking.
Well, there's a lot going on.
By the way. You look great, by the way.
Well, thank you. I mean, there's a lot going on behind the scenes and stuff like that. I mean, so I will say, like right now, I'm under suspension right now.
Okay.
It's all kind of off the field stuff and things like that. I mean, I don't want to get into all of that, but hopefully, I mean, I'm still employed at 92.9 The Game. I still have all my benefits and everything. I mean, so I'm still employed by them. I'm just on suspension, for right now until some things get handled and stuff like that, and some personal things that I've got to try to handle and stuff. So, but I mean, listen, we're hanging in there, and hopefully we'll be back on radio sooner rather than later.
Yeah, because I'm going to tell you, it is refreshing. We hear a lot of sports talk, we do, but we never really, when you talk wrestling, you could definitely hear the difference in intoness, because you're already aggravated with the teams, and right. It's like, everyone's like, well, Chuck, you need to calm down. Well, let's talk wrestling, because then you just start flowing through, and it's beautiful. And it's like people go, oh, he's talking about wrestling again. I'm like, I'd rather hear that versus the other stuff. Because
by the time I come on at night, I mean, I'm not shy about giving my opinions, obviously, but like there comes a point where, okay, I mean, there's only so many different ways you can say things. And, I think my show at night allows me to broaden my horizons a little bit and talk about, listen, I mean, if you talk about things that you are passionate about and have fun with, that's going to come through. And you're talking about, when you listen, like that comes through to people. And I get a lot of that kind of stuff. I mean, not just wrestling and stuff, but I mean, again, when you talk about things that you're passionate about, that's going to echo to your audience. And that's what I've always tried to do is, I've gotten in trouble for my opinions on different teams and stuff like that. And, I've had my pushbacks and stuff like that, but I mean, I'll continue to do that. But, you have to give people a slice of your personality about who you are and what you like and all these kinds of things. Look, I know there's a lot of guys that don't like wrestling on the station, but there's also a lot of guys that I talk to religiously about wrestling and different things like that. So, again, I mean, it's different strokes for different folks, but I'm going to always continue to be real about who I am and, what I enjoy. And if that's wrestling, then that's wrestling. I mean, you can either like it or, not. I mean, that's who I am, and I enjoy all of that.
We got Chris Tipmore saying JC. So we can get some comments. I tell people, please get involved, ask questions, whatever you like. Ladarius, what would you like to ask Mr. Chuckery before we start rolling into our show?
I was just listening, to be honest. I was just sitting here. I felt like I was like on a late night show, like how they're like in the green room. I was just, waiting, kind of like, oh no, he comes, and C-Dub comes like, I'm sorry, we ran over time. Can you come back next week? And it's like, that's what. And then
I was going to do that to you.
Yeah, I don't have a bad tie on or anything like that. I mean, so I mean, I'm just kind of like in my street clothes and everything. So
I was personally expected the Stone Cold shirt. Personally, I was just waiting. I was like, come on, final boss.
I was gonna say I didn't have time to change and everything. I got home a little bit late from my day job, and I got home a little bit late, and so I wanted to like jump on. I was like, man, I know he's waiting and stuff, so I wanted to make sure I got on as quick as I could. So yeah, unfortunately I did not get a chance to change into the Austin 316 shirt.
Well, what was funny, you missed it. About 8, we started at 1, but the problem was I forgot to hit the live button as me and him are talking about. We went through a couple of subjects, and I'm going, "Oh wow, I forgot to hit the live button." It's like that's going to be kind of weird.
It's kind of hard to broadcast if you're not actually live on there, but that's all right.
It's like
so I don't feel as bad now. So I didn't miss a whole lot, you know. I don't feel as bad now.
You know what? The first 8 minutes, I gave out the secrets of how the Hawks can get better, how the Falcons can have a great pass rush. They just missed out, man. They just missed out on the brilliance.
Again, you broke it all down for everybody. See,
I tried. I really did. You know. So let's go. We got a potential time. When you're coming back. Oh God, RUA. I told you, people have been missing you, man. We've been talking.
Yeah, so. I mean, I can't give a specific time. Most of the I'm no.
Oh no, you don't have.
But yeah, trust me. If I had the announcement, I would make it. But I just don't know, right now. But I am still employed by the radio station. I'm still an employee and everything. I went to dinner last night and went to Colony Square, and my key card works and everything. I mean, so I'm hopefully back sooner than later.
And you know what? It's good to be missed than not.
Yes. No, I do.
Some more.
Listen, I really appreciate everybody who's been a loyal listener, loyal follower. I understand. Like there's some things I can talk about. There's certain things I can't. Talk about and stuff. But I mean, listen, I'm still employed. I hope to be back soon. There's certain things going on and stuff like that. So hopefully it'll be sooner rather than later now at this point.
Amen. And like I said, when you come on, we'll be excited about it. So, all right, we're talking wrestling. So what was your impressions? Let's just get into it because WrestleMania, the biggest weekend, and the shows of shows, AEW is trying to do their thing. In March, they actually were having some really good shows. Then obviously you knew the machine that is WWE was taking over, the roller coaster that was. What was your overview or synopsis with the whole main event scene? Because we had Infinity Wars presented by WWE and then Endgame presented by WWE. But what did you think?
I thought the whole Cody angle was fantastic. Like look, the WWE has always been a babyface territory. And when you have those top babyfaces have that moment, I love the whole angle with Cody. I'll tell you what I didn't like though.
Yeah, good.
I didn't like Sammy beating Gunther. And I did not like that angle. Look, I like Sami Zayn, but and I know what they're doing. Like they're gonna set Gunther up, to face Cody at some point, and I get all of that. Like he's gonna move up from the Intercontinental Championship, but I didn't like the way that they allowed Sammy to beat him, and I just look, I think Gunther is one of the real strong points that they have on their show, and I'm a big fan of his. Like he'd be one of the guys I'd love to talk to because again he's a legitimate heel, and I'm not saying he doesn't care about people, but I mean again he's a legitimate heel in the business, and for a guy like Sammy to beat him, like I did not. That was the one thing about WrestleMania that kind of stuck in my crawl is why would you have Sami Zayn beat him? Like even if he just look, Austin when he was the Intercontinental Champion, remember he just gave up the belt. Like he just threw the belt off the bridge, right? I mean, so again, you could do different angles without losing. And I know they want to put Sammy over, and I know they want to make him. He is one of their stronger baby faces, but I didn't like that whole angle about, Gunther losing. And I know maybe in a few years, like there'll be bigger fish for him to fry, but I just didn't like that. But I loved Cody in the main event. And look, I had heard, I heard a little bit of inside information that they were going to lose on the first night of WrestleMania in the tag match and everything. And then Cody would get his, comeuppance. In the one-on-one match. So I kind of had a, that kind of was, kind of figured into everything. But the thing that just stuck in my craw was just Sammy beating Gunther. Like, and I'm a heel anyway, like I'm naturally a heel, so I like, that when you have some of the heels win, where you take away some of the, I don't know what I want to say, like just take away the baby face's ability, where you just kind of, sometimes the way you build up a baby face is, for him to lose. And that was the one thing that kind of stuck in my craw, was just the idea of Sammy beating Gunther, just who's been so, good in his character and so strong of a personality. I just didn't think that was the right guy to beat him.
Yeah, the whole thing, the one thing I kept saying about that, I felt it was rushed. Like there wasn't, like they didn't put more emphasis on the story. Like I would have preferred them, instead of doing the gauntlet match, I would have just done a tournament of guys that have fought Gunther, and then you put it up, you do a tournament. Chad can get going, Sammy, and you could have done the finals as Chad and Sammy, and then, you have Gunther wrestle. And I personally wouldn't have mind Gunther winning, because like you said, we already had a bunch of faces win.
Right.
Like I liked Logan Paul beating Orton and Owens. I thought that was the right call.
I do too. He came off really. Look, he's Logan Paul has been fantastic. He really is. And when you listen to some of the other, if you listen to Cornette and some of these people, like they love him. Like they think he's for what he is and how fast he's picked up on the business. Like he's been terrific, for them. If you look at some of these, celebrities, it really is a hit or miss thing. Logan Paul's been fantastic for the WWE. And I like the fact that, look, they didn't put a glamorous title on him with the U.S. title or anything like that, but just the idea of him having the belt and him finding a way to win, and then finding a way, to beat Randy Orton and Kevin Owens and stuff. It's just, I love it. Like I love how good Logan Paul has been. I think he's a real breath of fresh air for that company.
Yeah. And not only that, it's like when he first came in, people had that, it's Logan. Okay, well, we'll see how this goes. But I think he has earned or proved his worth. So so as you saw the build up and everything, because this is also a touchy subject with Mr. Cornette, because I like bringing this up, because I found this, I was hot about it. You can ask Ladarius. When on Saturday, WrestleMania 1, it's over. We know it's going to be bloodline rules. People are ecstatic. I thought that overbooking of the match for night 1, I thought that was great. Rock telling him, if you count, you're fired. I told him, I said, guys, they could have won the match, and Rock could have said, yeah, you know what? Still bloodline rules. F you. So, and I'm glad they didn't. I wanted The Rock to get that win. But then AEW decides to come up, because they were so upset about a guy who made a promo or did an interview outside of WWE and told the truth about what happened. CM Punk, the All-In special. And now they're airing footage. And I just said that was just the dumbest move they could have made. What were your thoughts on it, especially right after night 1?
I've had Tony on the show, and I've talked to Tony Khan, and I've had a chance to interview him, and I love his passion. But I think he allows himself to get blinded in some of that. Like, he's running a business, and I appreciate the fact that he's a fan, but that's not the time to be a fan. You have to be in the business, and all of that stuff, all it did is just reinforce CM Punk even more about that he was right, that he did the right thing. I don't see how AEW came off well in that whole scenario. And whether it's Jack Perry, who, again, I don't know what he's going to end up being, but I don't understand why Tony felt the need. I know he takes some of this stuff personally, and he thinks everything is, listen, it's the greatest thing ever. And I get that. And you need to, be rah-rah about your company. But
yeah.
there are times though when you just have to kind of step back and just and not be necessarily as much of a fan, but understand what's going to be good or bad for your business. And I thought that whole scenario with the Young Bucks and them showing the video, I thought that whole angle was just awful. Like I'm like why would you do that? Like, who benefits, from that? Like, Jack Perry comes off like a twerp and him running his mouth and stuff. Like, just the whole thing is just perplexing as to why. But I understand Tony and just the sense of, when he feels like something is personal against him, he's going to react. Okay, that's a fan, but he runs a business, and I don't think that was. I don't think it may be good for him where he thinks he got back at Punk personally, but from a business standpoint, that was an awful angle that was done on that show.
And all right, so now here we are, and like I said, we go into night 2, and it's like you saw CM Punk again, and it's like, what did you think about that World Heavyweight title? Because I think one thing's for sure, Seth Rollins, when we found out he had a torn meniscus and he wrestled on it and performed that he did. What did you think of his role in WrestleMania? Because a lot of us, we say he's like the MVP of that, especially with that end sequence. But what did you think about that world title match with him and Drew and then Damian coming out and cashing?
I like it because, I think at some point they're going to get Damian Priest away from I don't know about the legs of Judgment Day. Like I don't know. Yeah, like I don't know, I don't know if that's the right group for him. Like, I love Rhea and I like, Finn, but I don't know about that group, like I know that they're the faction, and they're hot, but I think Damian Priest is such a good performer that, I think he needs to be on his own. Like, I think he needs to be, doing what he needs to do and be away from Finn and even Rhea, let his personality come out. And they tried that at the beginning with him, but I just think that, I think that you could put the title on him and let him make a run with it. And listen, I mean, say what you will about Seth. I mean, he was putting everybody over, it seemed like. I mean, he spent the whole weekend putting everybody over. And listen, I mean, Seth is, one of the best in-ring performers in the entire business. So, when you beat him, he's not some schlub. I mean, it's not like he's just some goofball, some hack out there. When you beat him, there's some credibility to it, But I would like to see Damian just on his own get away from some of the. And look, I love R-Truth and all that kind of stuff, and those things are funny, I enjoy that, But Damian has a potential to be a real serious, threat for the long term. And I think being in that group doesn't do him any favors. I'd like to see him take a title run and just kind of establish himself on his own without just kind of all the background and filler noise.
Well, Darius, you got anything, bud?
No, I think going back to Seth, and I kind of talked about, to John's point, I think Seth, if you didn't give Seth the credit before WrestleMania, I think he deserved it after it. I think when you say the MVP of WrestleMania 40, it's not any hyperbole. It's legitimate after knowing the fact that he wrestled on that torn meniscus. I just think in the grand scheme of things, and I think I talked about this on another show or my podcast, I talked about, think about, who Cody Rhodes first faced when he came back. It was Seth Rollins.
Right.
It goes to show you that the company trusted Seth Rollins. Like, hey, they had 3 matches, and even though they lost all 3, he could take all 3 of those losses because, like to your point, it means something when you beat Seth freaking Rollins. So when Cody came back, that's who they stuck him with, and I think it's a testament to Seth Rollins, and and a bigger shout out to how he carried that belt and how he put over a lot of people and how he continued to put on great matches. We don't know how hurt he was, maybe his last couple title defenses, but it just goes to show you how important Seth Rollins is to WWE. I could argue for the last decade. What we saw at WrestleMania 40, I think people started to realize, those who were kind of left behind, that Seth Rollins is everything to this company, and he puts people over. Because listen, it could have been a situation where Seth could be like, what, I don't want to do it, but he's a company. He understood what he had to do, and in that match, and then to me, especially when he, in the tag team match, or when he came in and interfered in the Cody Roman match, I'm like, that you brought that he's entangled in so many storylines with Roman and the Shield and all of that, and it was significant to me where Roman hit him with that chair, because as we remember, Seth hit Roman when Seth went over and went to heel. That's one of the things that I will say that I really liked the way they wove all of the storylines, but between Roman and Seth and what had happened before. One of the things that I thought was really intriguing is, when Seth came out and he got in the ring, it was the blonde highlights and that version of Seth, and it was like the Shield Seth, right? He had the uniform and the hair highlight, and it was like, this is this. And if you didn't know, if you knew, it was fantastic. If you didn't know, you could kind of it made you want to figure out, okay, what really the backstory of all of that. And I love the fact of just the way that they presented him, all, with the Shield look, and and again, coming through the crowd and all that. I thought they did a great job of tying a lot of those loose ends together, and just allowing that, because now, again, even with Seth not being the champion, he's still one of the best workers, and he's still one of the best performers. So you can put him in all kinds of matches. You can put. Listen, I would enjoy a program of Seth and Roman if you set something like that up, or he feuds with the Bloodline to get to Roman. You could do a whole lot of things with Seth, and I think that's the thing, is just they did such a good job of weaving that story all together. Of the first thing Roman did was go after Seth. Even though he was wrestling Cody, it was, I'm going after Seth and I'm trying to get my get back, on him. I thought they did a great job in just tying all of those storylines together, where now you have 15 different things that you can do moving forward. Nothing has to be done in just a short amount of time. You have all of these long-term kinds of things that you can do with, Cody and Seth and Rollins, or I should say Roman. You can do all of these kinds of things, with all of that. And now, again, I'm excited for Jacob Fatu potentially to get, with the Bloodline and everything. I'm excited to see him. I want to see him come up. He's one of the great performers in the business nowadays. There's so many things you can do, even without guys having the title, to weave all of that story together.
Oh yeah, so agree. So, with that being said, then you look at the women's division. It started off with a heck of a match, Rhea versus Becky, and now we get the news that Rhea's not there. And I'm going to say this, your point about Judgment Day, losing Rhea is going to be more impactful, I think, on Judgment Day than the women's division, because I think the women's division, you'll find talent. You can draft some people also, but the Judgment Day, it was confusing, because if you watch Raw, you saw Damian Priest do guys, this is the plan. This, Finn, go teach the man the meaning of the word loss. Loses. They jump Jay. And you can ask Ladarius, I was aggravated with this one. Because then, all of a sudden, I guess Priest saw his video highlight field and went, maybe I should be a face. Why are you guys attacking him? I did not say anything like that. It just got me really aggravated. That one little part, and I'm going, be a leader.
Well, I think Damian Priest, by and large, I'll say it like this. I think they did a better job in NXT with Damian Priest than what they've done on the main roster so far. I mean, I think Damian Priest is a star waiting to happen. He's got the look and he's got the physicality and the size and just, he looks like a professional wrestler, right? I mean, and that voice and everything that goes along with it. And, he's a really good worker. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from him just as far as in ring, but, like he's one of the guys that you could see really becoming a star. And I loved it. I mean, I loved him when, he was in NXT and things like that. But, I don't know that they've used him very well on the main roster. I think Judgment Day has done him a lot of good in being with some of the people that he's with. But it feels like now it's like, okay, if you're going to get Damian Priest over, now's the time. Now is the time where you can put Judgment Day in some of the rearview mirror. He's got a title, and you can do something with him. And I'm gonna be curious to see like how long of a reign that they give him with that title. Like, I can understand putting that belt on Seth, when you first introduce it, and he's one of the great workers. I get all of that, but I want to see how long they give Damian a run, with the title, and let's see how long that they keep that on him. Like, sometimes WWE, like, do you know how long? I'll ask you guys. Do you remember how long Austin was the champion after WrestleMania 14 when he beat Shawn?
I'm doing the math because I remember. Because didn't he lose it like, I want to say September, October? Because wasn't it? It was August.
It was August.
Okay,
yeah.
I knew it was
remember because they had the
I thought it was September because they had Taker versus Austin at Madison Square Garden at SummerSlam, and then the next show was Kane and Undertaker versus Austin. That's what I thought.
That was the Hell in the Cell match, and
okay.
You're
right. Yep, you're right.
That was the Hell in the Cell match, and Austin came out with the he had the staph infection on his elbow. Remember, he came out with the big elbow pad on, but my point to that is they didn't have a long run with Austin. When Hogan won the title, he went 4 years before he lost the belt again. Austin in 3 months, was giving up the title, and it wasn't like The Rock or something like that. It was Kane. I mean, they put the belt on Kane, and then the whole what was it, the not the beer truck, but the Zamboni and all that, and just but and he was such a strong character, but they really did not give him a long run with the title at the very top. They were flip-flopping the belts a little bit, and I want to see Priest if they do some of the WWE stuff where they start switching titles every couple of months. His character's not going to get over. Let him get a long title run. Let him, I'm not saying 4 years, but I mean, let him get a title run where he can develop and beat some people and beat some quality people, not just, hey, we flip-flop the belt every 60, 30, 90 days or whatever like that. And, we have 1,000 guys that are, got, these month-long title runs and stuff like that.
Yeah. All right. Real quick, want to introduce my other co-host. I believe he was supposed to be going to a wedding. So, but he's decided to show up on here. Mr. Jerry, Mr. Lone Wolf himself. Appreciate the white tank top in your best. What's up, my man?
Not much. Waiting on the missus to wake up so we can go.
Ain't that the story of your life? All right. Well, Jerry, this is Jon Chuckery. We've been talking wrestling, and we're just asking questions and letting him shoot from the hip and just go from there, okay?
All right, cool.
Cool. So I'm just going to keep everyone on the screen. So, John, what was your takeaways? I mean, we talked about the main event, but really, like, what match? You talked about the Intercontinental titles. You were more for Gunther than Sammy, but what other matches were something that you just really enjoyed watching?
I like the idea that they gave Bayley. Bayley has not been hugely successful at WrestleMania, and she's had kind of a hit or miss kind of WrestleMania record. I like the idea that they put the title on her, and look, and I've had Bailey on the show. Like I really enjoyed talking with her. Like I think she's a big fan of wrestling. She's not just a wrestler, but she's a big fan of wrestling. And so the idea of and she look, I think she's one of the best workers in all of women's wrestling. Not, and I don't mean it that way. I'll put it like this: I think she's one of the best workers, period, in the promotion. So I like the idea of her kind of getting some flowers because, I don't know that she's been as appreciated as maybe she should have been. But that was a great moment, like the idea of her winning at WrestleMania and kind of capping everything off. And I'm a big fan of hers. Like I think she's fantastic. I think she's a terrific wrestler, and I love the personality and I love her arguing with Michael Cole and these different things. Like I really enjoy her. So I thought that was a really good moment where she really kind of got her flowers at WrestleMania after kind of what's been kind of a hit or miss kind of past with it.
Yeah, and I totally get that because, I mean, we all talk about Bailey. I know, Jerry, you've said you also agree that she's probably one of the best workers in the business when it comes to not just the women, but in general. So, what? All right. So now we're going to talk. Now we're getting caught up here. But now here's the deal. Because now AEW has a show. They have the guys they are featuring. But because of the CM Punk video, I feel like it's taken away from AEW's dynasty. What do you all say? What, Chuckery, we'll start with you.
Well, so they for instance, they've bought what's her name, Sasha Banks in. What is her name? Something
Mercedes
Monet. Mercedes Monet.
Yeah.
And I will say it like this. The way that WWE presented her versus how even in a limited run she's been presented in AEW, it really is striking. Like when you see just kind of her character and her personality, like WWE could figure out a way to bring out that big personality. Like and again, she's not like a big physical threat or something like that, but I think she's a really good worker and they just did everything right with her to build that personality. And then you watch her on AEW and you kind of like, okay, maybe it's time to stop talking. Maybe it's, maybe concentrate in the ring and again, and I know that's her gimmick, as far as coming out and flashing the bling and stuff like that. But after you've seen all that in WWE, now it just feels like it's just a rehash of, it's like poor man's WWE when you watch it now. And I think she's a really good performer, and I like Sasha Banks, and I've liked her work, and I think she's one of the better performers. But when you watch her on AEW, it just looks different. Like there's just something about her personality that feels like it's less than. And I don't know. I can't quantify it, but just it feels like it's not the same kind of personality and vibe that she used to give off in WWE.
Oh, I'm with you. What do you say, Ladarius or Jerry? You guys can take this. What do you think?
Go ahead.
I side with John here because listen, I like Sasha Banks, I like Mercedes, I like the four horsewomen in general.
Yeah,
I love all four of them. When I see her on AEW, and I'm kind of like John. At some point, when are we going to see this get into the squared circle? Because at this point, I don't even fully blame her. It's just as something just feels off, and all I know is that it doesn't make her unwatchable. It doesn't make the show unwatchable. It's just I just want to see her do what she does best. And while it works for her gimmick, the whole CEO and the flat, that's great. I don't knock. It's a solid gimmick. But at some point, I just need to see something else. And I don't know when are we going to see it. I don't know how, but it just feels different because essentially I felt like, if they're doing it this way, then she could have just returned to WWE and just been and been Sasha Banks, and except with more production value and more of they know her, and like to your point, they understand how to take and maximize what she has and make it something at AEW, and it's not knocking. It's just something just doesn't feel right.
I'll say this. It feels like when Hulk Hogan first went to WCW, and he was called the Hulkster, right? Yeah. And he still had the red and yellow, and it's like, okay, this is like the Kmart version of Hulk Hogan, right? Kmart, I mean, it's the Dollar General version of Hulk Hogan. But then, say what you will, but I mean, when he becomes, when he turns and they do the NWO, and okay, look, I mean, again, you can say what you want about Hogan and his politics about in wrestling and stuff, but again, that was a much needed redevelopment, because you'd watch him, and he did the stuff with Vader and all this, and you just watch him, and you're like, okay, this is like Discount Mart Hogan. Like it's not Hulkamania. Like it's not the Hulkster. It's like, I know he's getting a little bit older, but it's like, okay, like Hogan and WCW. It's like, it
didn't look right.
No, it didn't. I mean, and that was that first couple of years when, he was in WCW like that, then obviously, I mean, once, the NWO and he turns and all that stuff like that completely recreated him. And I don't know, I don't know if you need to like recreate Sasha Banks, but you have to do something with it. Like if you're just coming out and she's dancing around with the bling and all that kind of stuff, well, she could have done that for WWE. Like, we know that, like we know that. We've seen all of that. I mean, either kind of develop it more or do something different or just put some kind of spin on, because again, it looks like Dollar General, Mercedes Moné. Like it seems like Dollar General Sasha Banks.
Yeah. What you guys say, Jerry?
I mean, yeah, I agree. They just need to put her in the ring and let her work.
What frustrates me is that some will say, well, they're saving her for all or double or nothing. Well, that's fine, but she did do her finisher in the risky business, but monkey business, whatever it was that they did, boss business. I can't remember all these different
big names. Business or something. I think.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's she does the move, and I'm going. She had to stand on her legs. She needed to. She could work. Let's get her to work, because the promos are killing me. Some people like the moaning, but that's for another reason for another day. But oh my god, it was so freaking hilarious.
If they wanted to save her for a pay-per-view, why did they debut her this early? Why not wait?
Here's my critique about Tony Khan, and you guys can tell me fair or foul. My problem with Tony Khan is this: he rushes through way too much. He could put on some shows for wrestling, like wrestling match indie style. Like, you go and you're going to see some great matches. You want stories? You're really not going to get that. You may get a couple here and there, but that's because of the workers. And when Cody left, they lost that story guy. And then, you haven't seen MJF. That was a guy that was a real big persona, but yet they switched him to face, and it was cringy. But yet, it's like they have talent, but yet, like you just said, Chuckery, it feels like it gets cheapened as soon as they step in to AEW. You go to WWE, look at example, Jade Cargill. When she was in AEW, she looked like something. She goes to WWE, the presentation just knocks it out of the ballpark with her.
It looks completely like she's the same person, but it looks complete. And I've had her on the show, and I had her on a couple of years ago, when she was first getting started, and like she's a really nice person, and really enjoyed talking to her, and she's got a lot to learn, but you see just like the presentation, like they know how to make somebody feel like a star. Like they know how to make somebody feel like, look look, say what you will about Cody Rhodes. I mean, the old, what was it when he was with was it DiBiase's kid that they were a tag team at one point,
Yeah,
the WWE and all that.
Yeah,
like again, and I get that, and he was where it was gold dust, he was stardust, and that was ridiculous. But you can see like the difference in a Cody Rhodes now, even from when he was in AEW. And look, he did some great things in AEW. I mean, that event that they had, their first time in Atlanta, when he did the the backflip off the turnbuckle and the cage or whatever. I was not there. I was not there for that, but I remember that. I remember watching it, when
I was there for the Andrade match he had, the street fight where he set himself on fire.
So I mean, again, but to you guys' point, the way that these people are presented, I mean, it is a big difference. Like when you watch some of these people, they look different when they're on WWE television. The way that they are presented looks different. And Jane Cargill is, that is a point about, you look at the way she's presented in that promotion, even from, it's not just wins and losses, like just the way that they present her and her look and everything.
Mm-hmm. And, so let's talk about this. You got AEW, they got Dynasty, and see, this is where I say they can come up with some great matches. You're going to have Ospreay versus Danielson. You're going to have, I'm trying to think of all the matches. I apologize. Swerve versus Joe. That's going to be a good one, but it's like you said, it just feels something missing. Is it the fact they don't have a Triple H, or just simple as this? They don't get the storytelling aspect, but they can get you to watch their matches, because that's really, it's like people want to make this into so much more, but I think it's simple as the storytelling.
I don't disagree. I mean, I think the way that they develop their characters is, at times, like I don't know that they do the same kind of character development the way that WWE does. I mean, and look, I mean, it's different styles, for different fights and stuff. I mean, but they present, they try to present a big time in-ring product, but when you're trying to appeal to the masses, and this is something Cornette talks about, like when you're trying to appeal to the masses, to not just not just the 800,000 people that are devoted wrestling fans, like your goal is to be, in front of millions of people. And say what you will, but I mean, like at times that the WWE, the matches are like, they're in the way. Like they're just, it's like, why, like why do we have a wrestling match? Like, I want to see more of, this guy talking to this guy and interact with this guy and all that kind of stuff, and get back to all of that. And that's the thing is, and I know Tony is about the in-ring product and all that kind of stuff. And he's got some of those guys, Danielson, and Ospreay and all that, they're about the in-ring product. But, when Bryan Danielson really got over, Bryan Danielson was always a terrific wrestler, even before, when he was, in his younger years and stuff. But when he really got over was the Yes movement and all this kind of stuff, and just, the character presentation, and people are raising their hands in the air, and it's just like, everywhere. That's how you get yourself over. Like it's not just, hey, I can do a spinning toe hold and, do a tope suicida. Like, his personality registered with the fans. It wasn't just his wrestling. He was always a great wrestler, but once his personality registered with the fans, then his popularity skyrocketed after that. And people, 20,000 people in an arena, all raised up. They still do it. Like they again, you watch the show, you watch WWE or AEW, they still do the yes, yes, yes. I mean, even Bryan Danielson is not in WWE anymore. The crowd still is like, yes, yes, yes. Mm-hmm. I mean, so again, that stuff registers with people. It's like, like when Austin did what? Like they still do that. Like they still, it's like 20 years later from when he was doing what? I mean, and as ridiculous as it was, people still register with that kind of stuff. They still register with the idea of, that's what people like and enjoy. They want that entertainment aspect of it, where they feel like, look, the average fan can't connect with how good of a wrestler Bryan Danielson is, but they can connect with yes, 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 and they can feel like they're a part of that. And that's something that AEW doesn't always, I think, tap into with some of their guys. They're so focused on their in-ring that the personality part of it doesn't get a chance to completely shine through for them.
Can you see how because people are saying Swerve's the next guy, do you see him as the guy for them? And also, can he maybe break up this monotony, because he actually is a good worker and he has that good charisma. It's just with everything that he's been doing, it's been kind of putting a shadow on him also.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see Swerve just kind of go on his own, without, all the other, folderol that's in the background. Like let Swerve. I mean, Swerve's either going to make it or fail on his own. I mean, I think he's that good of a performer. I mean, but let him not have the managers or, the factions and all that. Just, the Mogul Embassy and all that. Like, let him go on his own. Like, let him do his thing. I mean, if you're getting over with the audience, let those guys just do their thing and continue to build on it, and let them not have to be drugged down or drug around with some of the other people that get into some of those groups, or, managers and stuff like that. Like, if you're over, you're over, I mean, and let him be over and let him do his thing the way that he's doing it. Because again, the more you kind of tie him into some of these goofy groups and stuff like that, like, again, keep him away from some of that stuff and let him get out on his own and do his thing.
Oh yeah. So, all right. So, Jarrett, I'm going to be like popping some more stuff in there. Do you have anything to ask, Joe?
No, I'm good.
You're just awesome. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
so, I just like to give people don't feel like I'm so I don't hog the whole thing. But all right. So now my question is this, because Cornette, or you've been hearing Cornette for a while. You also hear, I know do you listen to Eric Bischoff's 83 Weeks by any chance?
Yeah, I mean, I can't say that I listen to every episode for the entire episode, but I mean, I'll watch their YouTube clips and I'll listen to his podcasts and stuff. I like Eric. I mean, I like Eric. So, I mean, I still keep up and follow along with what he's got going on.
He's been killing it, but two, I mean, especially with the podcast and just his takes on everything about how, he couldn't believe you're actually putting more time to dog WWE and not focus on your product. And I'm going, or was it Conrad actually said, Eric, you kind of did the same thing, didn't you?
Yeah.
And he goes,
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I'll say it like this. There's a lot of revisionist history with Eric Bischoff, and I don't want to make this sound like I'm critiquing or slamming Eric, because I really like Eric, but let's face it. I mean, there was a lot of things that they tried that was the crapper. I mean, and there was a lot of his run that was not. I mean, if you look outside of the NWO, how many really successful things were there? Like Crow Sting, okay, like, but that also obviously tied into the NWO. Yeah. But and I think the biggest thing with Eric is that the thing besides the NWO that I really give him credit for is bringing some of the luchador style, the Eddie Guerreros and the Rey Mysterios and guys like that into wrestling, giving them a mainstream platform. Like I do think that was a really good thing that they did. But if you look at like, a lot of some of that stuff outside the NWO, like it's not, it just left a lot to be desired, but when you spun everything around the NWO, okay, that was good stuff, but you started getting away from that and it's like, okay, like, I'm not knocking Eric for what he did and stuff like that, but like he hit on a great idea, and that came from Japan. I understand all that, but again, he built his business around the success of all of that. But there was a lot of like kind of stuff that's like not all that good,
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny when you hear him talking. Have you seen any of the Dark Side of the Rings? By any chance?
I've seen some of the videos. Like I don't have Vice TV, but I've seen some of the videos and stuff.
Oh man, there have been some good ones. They had Chris Adams this past week, and then Harley Race the other time, and I'm like,
Chris Adams, the inventor of the super kick. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They show. It's like it was funny because we were watching and I said, yeah, he doesn't hit his thigh like the other guys. Then I watched and said he did hit it. Oh man, I'm an idiot. But
well, he
still hit.
Yeah, he had so many like drug and issues and things like that it never really. I mean, he never really became the star that he probably could have. But so many people copied, things that he did. But he just, just psychologically, I guess, just could not keep it all together. Like he was a mess. I mean,
well, I couldn't believe he actually did wrestle for WCW in the 90s during the Nitro era. And I'm going, oh man, I can't believe he's there. And I was like having to remember because I watched matches and I remembered the match with Big Show smoking a cigarette. I'm like, that was him. It's like, oh my God. It's like, it's like you go back to Goldberg versus William Regal and how, that was a struggle to watch.
Yeah. Yep.
Now, I like William Regal's telling of that. I was told to give him 10 minutes. He was going to give me 10 minutes. He says, I can't bloody beat myself up. I'm like, yeah, you really can't, Regal, but you probably could. But so in the podcasting era, you got Jim Cornette, you got Bischoff, you got even Vince Russo does it now. Who's the guy that just you really do enjoy out of all those guys? Because they all come from an old school era of wrestling, just different eras. But who is your typical favorite?
I'm probably, I really first started listening to podcasts, with Bruce Pritchard and Conrad. Mm-hmm. But I mean, as I've just kind of like listened more and more, like I'm entertained by Cornette more than anybody right now. Like I really enjoy Jim Cornette's podcast and just some of the dynamics and things like that. Listen, I mean, I enjoyed Bruce more when he wasn't with the WWE anymore. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like when they first started all of that, and he kind of maybe spoke a little bit more, from the heart and stuff. But I enjoy Cornette the most. Like I like Eric, and I listen to Vince Russo, as well. I listen to several of these podcasts, but I'm just a big fan of Cornette. Like I like excuse me, kind of some of the information and stuff that you get from him. And just, again, he's one of the great wrestling minds of all time. I mean, no one's going to say Russo or Bischoff is like one of the great wrestling minds. Cornette's one of the great wrestling minds ever. Yeah. He has an understanding of the business. I agree with that. Yeah, he understands the business, and he's got a great mind for it. And so I enjoy listening to his insights about, when he delves a little bit deeper into the business and psychology and things like that. Like that's what I really enjoy about Cornette.
Yeah, I do too, actually. That's his historian, to give you the history facts and the things that built to it. It's second to none. I mean, I'll listen and I'm just like going, go on. I'm still listening because I'm listening.
Right.
It's just some of the things. And it's like, I go, I could see, it's like this. You could be like, he may be telling the truth. He may be lying to me, but he's passionate about whatever he's saying.
Yeah. Yeah. So. Yeah. And look, I mean, obviously he could have worked for, Tony Khan. I mean, he could have been part of AEW. I mean, they wanted him. I mean, they wanted to bring him in. I mean, and I'm not saying that it's a gimmick that he, craps on Tony Khan and stuff like that. I know part of that is that. I mean, that it's part of it is his gimmick and stuff. But at the same time, there's a lot of truth in what he says. I mean, and do I agree with everything Cornette says? No. I mean, I don't agree with some of the stuff. But there's a lot of truth behind it. Like this guy knows, like this, this guy was up and down the roads and stuff. And, it was a different business when he was in it. And sometimes I think he's got too much of an old school mentality.
Yeah.
But he does understand, the business of what you need to do and how you need to present things. And I think that's, where, Cornette is interesting to just listen to, just when you, and listen, I said, I've tried multiple times to get, Cornette on the show. I mean, I would love to pick his brain. Like, I would just love to just sit back and pick his brain. I mean, yeah, it'd be all the fun entertainment kind of stuff and things like that. But I'd love to just sit with Cornette and just pick his brain, and get inside his mind a little bit, because I do think he's got a lot of wrestling knowledge and he's been around forever. But, there's a lot of things I agree with, but there's, things I don't agree with as well. But I think he's just a fascinating figure in the industry. I mean, with his take on how things are. I mean, just and because he's been involved with Crockett Promotions and Vince McMahon and just everything in the world of wrestling, and run his own promotion and been on TNA. I mean, like, he's had a hand in everything of modern wrestling that, we look at. Like there's very few things that Jim Cornette has not been involved in when it comes to modern wrestling. Yeah.
I mean, and by the way, if I'll find the episodes that are that Darkside has on YouTube floating around. I'll send them, because he actually is a wealth of knowledge to them.
Yeah.
And there was one show that the producer said, he goes, honestly, I could have Cornette put the camera, hit record, and walk away, and I'll get 3 hours of knowledge. I'll get plenty of knowledge.
Yep.
Hold on. Let's see here. I got my buddy, either it's John Harris or Winston from the Eye Test, and they're saying, I remember Dusty Rhodes' induction ceremony where they were talking about how it was back in the day, the barnstorming days of running up and down the roads. That was the days. And so, Chuck, how long have you been a wrestling fan? Because how far back do you go?
I mean, I was first watching wrestling in the late 70s. I mean, I was watching WWE, or I should say WWF, in the late 70s. Like I remember Bob Backlund being the first WWF champion that I was watching. That was before Hulkamania. I mean, so I remember when Bob Backlund was, the champion. And, cable, as an old fart, like, cable wasn't as advanced as, what it is today. I mean, we didn't like our cable system was, it was limited, but growing up in the Northeast, I grew up in Northeast Ohio, like we got WWF programming and stuff. And that's kind of what I grew up on. Like, and my first live wrestling was fall of 1984 at a WWF show in Canton, Ohio, which is my hometown. My mom took me to a WWF house show in Canton, Ohio. And I remember that it was like September, October of 1984. Now, Hogan wasn't there. That was not an Canton, Ohio wasn't an A town. But I remember Brutus Beefcake, Greg Valentine, Tito Santana, like seeing some of those guys. Like the Intercontinental Championship was wrestled, but again, we never got Hogan or anybody like that. But it'd be like Don Morocco and people like that. But my first live wrestling was 1984. Being in the Canton Civic Center watching WWF programming.
Oh wow! All right, real quick. This is the Eye Test. This is my buddy John from Union City. He wanted to tell you, hey, Jon Chuckery. Oh, Mr. Harris, I'm telling you right there, that man is hilarious. We've been doing shows on the Eye Test, and we've been talking Falcon stuff nonstop. So we're gonna be doing a draft special on Thursday, and God willing. I mean, everyone's worried that we're gonna do something stupid. I'm praying this is the year that we get a pass rushers, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. We'll see. I mean, I have my doubts, but I'm hopeful. I'm fingers crossed. But
I'm with you. I'm so with you, because I know before I would actually be like, "Come on, John, you're always wanting pass rush." Now it's like, "Yes, John, I agree. We need pass rush. I don't care.
Yeah.
You need it. That
Yeah,
last I checked,
if you can't sack the quarterback in today's NFL, I don't care what you think you can do on defense. You have to be able to influence the quarterback when you're on defense in the NFL game. Like you have to be able to do that, and it's not just random happenstance that when you look at the teams that can really pressure quarterbacks, they're the ones that are in the Super Bowl or competing for the Super Bowl or making deep playoff runs. Like there aren't like 20 sack teams that are contending for the NFL Super Bowl. Like there's you don't see teams that only get 20 or 25 sacks in a season competing at the highest level for trying to win a championship. It's the guys that are 40, 50, 60 sacks that are the best teams in the NFL. And I'm not saying it's all about, sacking the quarterback, but just, again, if you can't influence, you have to have an influencer on offense at that position, but you also have to be able to have an influencer on defense that can disrupt that position. And that's what the NFL game is. It's sack the quarterback. You have to have a great quarterback and a guy that's a great guy that can sack the quarterback. And if you have those two things, you can figure out a lot of stuff from there. It's not coincidence that Vic Beasley, the one season that he did have when it's 15 and a half sacks, it was Matt Ryan is the MVP of the league. And then you had a 15 sack guy that could influence the position on the other side of the football. That led to a Super Bowl. Like funny how those things just work themselves out.
And we don't have that, and it hasn't been the same since. I mean,
no.
Curious, I guess. So let's talk about with the WWE, because now we got what do you think about this new style of bloodline that we're seeing? We got Solo coming in, basically making Paul Heyman's life miserable now. And we got Tama Tonga, who's Haku's son. What's your thought? What are we looking at going? Where do you think the game's going to be with this one?
Well, again, we're getting into that time after WrestleMania when Roman is going to be a sporadic person, in the business. I mean, that Roman's done this for the last few years, right? I mean, he's going to be sporadic. So you have to. I mean, look, there'll be bloodline versus bloodline at some point. That's what all this is leading to. But you have to have supporting characters, around Roman. And it can't just be the Usos. I mean, it has to be more than that. So, again, Jacob Fatu being, one of the great up and coming wrestlers and stuff, and he's gonna have a completely different look and feel. It's because again, he's a completely different kind of character. I mean, he's I think he's fabulous. I love Jacob Fatu, but he's you have to be able to have that supporting cast because you're not going to have Roman. Like you're not. And, there's been talk about, how long Roman's going to be in this and stuff. Look, he's already getting into acting and everything, right? He was in, a couple of movies, over the summertime and stuff. I mean, so you never know how long so you never know how long some of these guys are going to be in there. And you have to start thinking about the future. Like, I don't think the WWE really had a plan once The Rock left. Like, I don't think that when he in the early 2000s left to go full time into movies, like they didn't have something in place that they could have somebody elevated that rose up and just kind of took over that next spot. Like they struggled for a while, to try to find, that next, big time babyface star. And, again, I think it's a matter of they're trying to build up all the guys around Roman so that if he does eventually leave, and look, he's obviously got, some of his own health issues and stuff that he's battled, but if he does eventually leave, you can still have some storyline, without the lead character, and then you can make him even more special when he does come back, and it is a big moment when he comes back and stuff. Like I think honestly, the WWE, for as great as Roman has been as a heel and with Paul Heyman and everything, it's not going to be, if he continues on this trajectory, it's not going to be long where people are going to enjoy him as a babyface. Like people are going to enjoy, like they forced Roman down our throat, when he left the Shield and everything. And that was not a good way of presenting him. But I think that Roman has built himself up to be such a star in the industry that when there is that eventual babyface change, like that's like people are going. Like, it's the same thing with Randy Orton. Like I've said, I don't know how Randy Orton can go back to being a bad guy anymore because he's so beloved by that audience now.
Mm-hmm.
Like Randy Orton is one of those guys that you love to watch him, and it's like even when he does bad stuff, it's like it's okay, you know. Like again, I can root for him even when he's a bad guy. Like I can root for him. So there's going to be a point. I think there's going to be a point like that for Roman where you're not going to be able to present him as a bad guy for much longer because people really do enjoy him and buy into him.
What's your stance on face managers? Because me personally, I don't like them. Especially if a guy can talk and the guy can do his thing. We kind of discussed it with Nana. We're seeing it, if Roman comes back, Heyman. But what's your view on a face manager? Because I think managers should always be heels.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of any really good face managers to begin with. I mean, you have to be able to just go out to the crowd and just make fun of them, and they have to. I mean, it's different now for managers because managers don't like Paul Heyman doesn't take bumps and stuff like that. But Cornette would take bumps, and Bobby Heenan would take bumps, and people like that. I mean, they would get into the physicality where they would look like like a fool or whatever. But you have to have some of that stuff. I mean, you can't have managers that don't get humiliated and things like that. And even Paul Heyman gets some of that. Like you see some of the visuals and stuff. So I don't buy into the idea of most of your babyface managers and stuff like that. I think managers by and large should be heel to be the mouthpiece for somebody and be able to be the chicken bleep kind of character that's in that group.
I mean, I think the best. I mean, there was Bobby Heenan back in the day. Well, Freddie Blassie, I know, but Bobby Heenan, I know Jimmy Hart. I remember Gary Hart. I loved Gary Hart as a manager. Mm-hmm. He was just an evil man. And then you had Jim Cornette. Then you had Paul E. Dangerously. So, did you get to watch the Hall of Fame?
I saw bits and pieces of the Hall of Fame. I didn't get a chance to watch the whole thing.
Did you at least see Heyman's?
Say that again.
Did you see Heyman's? Paul Heyman's?
I saw part of his speech. I got to see part of it. I mean, look, he's obviously the best that there is right now. But again, he's that larger than life personality. Like he's just one of those guys that is. Again, he's. I would tell you he's even better now because when you get to a point where you don't have to give two F's about anything, I think that's where Paul Heyman is. He can not give an F about anything because he's built his reputation and stuff. And I think that's the thing about him is just that he's so good at what he does that he can just if he can just basically tell the crowd, look, I don't give an F what you think about me, and that's when you can be at your best. Like when you can just be like that, I think that's what makes him so great. Just, and again, he's got all the facials and all this kind of stuff, but I think he's done his best work now where he's not trying so hard. Sometimes, when he would be in ECW, again, he would rally the crowds and stuff, but he tried too hard. And even, some of the things that he did, I love the Dangerous Alliance and all that, but some of those things were, they felt like they were kind of more forced and stuff. Paul's just out there having fun now. Like when you see a guy like that, he's just out there having fun with it all.
Oh yeah. And when you're free to work too, because you're able to be yourself.
Yep.
You're not having to memorize scripts and everything. What do you think about the shift and change in leadership where we had what was it with Triple H now in charge versus Vince? I mean, this has been a big, topic to talk about. So I'm just saying, obviously, like the promotion has changed, or the like visuals that we're seeing now, the camera shots, and then the overall booking. But what did you think about how everything has switched over and
Well,
how they're running?
I think it's the TKO factor. Like I think Triple H is doing a great job, but I think it's just the TKO factor where they know how to put on a sports presentation. And if again, there's the entertainment aspect of it, but you also have to be able to have that sports based, like we want wrestling to come across as a sports based product or entity, not just kind of like slapstick nonsense and things like that. And I think that's more of like what Vince McMahon at this age of Vince McMahon, I think it got a little bit less away from some of the character development and things like that. And I think TKO has kind of put more of a polished presentation on, like you see some of the camera work and things like that, and just kind of what's going on. I mean, and look, they've got some great characters like right now. I mean, again, Roman's great. I mean, obviously The Rock is great. Cody is great. I mean, like they have some top flight characters. Even people like Rhea Ripley and Becky Lynch. Like I'm huge fans of theirs. I mean, I love Becky. I'm like as big a Becky Lynch fan as that there is. So again, if you allow those performers to come across, in a realistic way, and you kind of get it, kind of like very sport like, where it's not just some of the WWE stuff. Like there's still some of that element of who's that goofy tag team that they have in WWE that's oh gosh, it's not the Creed brothers. Who's the who is it?
Street Profits?
No, not the Street Profits.
Okay.
They're two white guys with the long hair. Oh gosh. I can't
New Cats Republic?
Is that who it is? I mean, some of that stuff is just
Tyler Bates and Pete Dunne.
That's not. No, it's not them. It's their heels, and I can't remember. But again, when I see some of that stuff, it's like, it's like,
Pretty Deadly. That's who you're
Pretty
talking
Deadly.
about.
I mean, Pretty Deadly. Like, and I know there's a place. I know there's a place for that stuff. But there comes a point at which it's like, okay, like this needs to go. Like this just is not working. I mean, so there's still some of that element that, I think lingers in WWE. And again, I know everything can't be a home run, but there's just still some of that lingers in there.
When I look at Pretty Deadly, I just think it's like a tag team that wins by the cheat method. And that's the only thing I like about them. Like they cheat to win. They don't, and they're cowardly. They play that role well. But that's it. I'm not.
Absolutely.
I used to not be a big fan of the Street Profits. I wasn't, and it took. I like them now, but it's just like kind of go, But with Lashley, I haven't seen that improvement that people were talking about.
Yeah.
Big things. Coming up is the draft, and it's kind of awesome that WWE decided to mix it with the NFL draft to they're saying promote draft fever. Now, me personally, I'm just glad they're doing it in April versus October, because that time they did that, it was horrible. I don't know about you, because they had guys going, well, I've been brand supremacy. Well, you just got moved to Raw.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I'm not a big fan of the draft. I mean, just because it's, I mean, it's just, again, I get the idea of why they do it and stuff. And I understand all of that, but again, when the whole show was scripted, like, why would you not think the draft is scripted? I mean, so Well, I mean, it's like, okay, I mean, does it really matter what show is somebody's on? So I mean, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the draft by and large, just because I get it why they do it, but it's just such a hokey gimmick. Like, because again, like who's going to kind of be where and just why they're on, this and just. I mean, I don't know. I'm not as big a fan of the draft in WWE.
Well, here's the question we'll go with on this one, though, is that with Cody Rhodes being the champion, and he's bringing that old school look, he's holding the belt like old Ric Flair and Dusty used to do. What do you think, like WWE now, with after what's gone on, what do you think about their future? How do you think they're going to be going? Because they keep riding, and they'll have bumps in the road, but they always rise.
Yeah. I mean, listen, WWE is never going anywhere. Like they're a staple of American television, and they are now. Like they're not just a wrestling promotion anymore. Yeah. Like they're a staple of American television. I mean, they've been on TV for so long, and they've built such a brand, and they're ingrained into Americana and stuff like that. Like they're never going anywhere. So I mean, again, 50 years from now, they'll be at WWE. Doesn't matter who runs it. I mean, doesn't matter if Vince McMahon or not or whatever like that. Like there'll always be a WWE. There's a market for that kind of entertainment. And look, they get, again, their main roster gets 5 hours a week of primetime television. Mm-hmm. Their development brand gets a couple of hours of primetime television. So again, they've built a brand to where, like they'll be around forever. Like I'll be dead and gone before WWE, is out of business or anything like that. Like they just built such an Americana brand that's, again, that company represents, and it's not just like a niche product. Like, again, when you've got, you can say what you want, but again, when they have as many hours of primetime programming, I don't care if it's cable or regular, and again, I know they're going off Fox and stuff, and they're going to be, like streaming and all these different kinds of things now. They're coming. What is it? September is when they're off of Fox or whatever like that. Yeah, so they're going to be going I get all of it. Yeah, so I mean, I get all that, but
Netflix. And then
so again,
USA is going to have SmackDown, and CW I think is getting NXT. So they're
So again, I mean, it doesn't. I mean, look, they were on what was when they left USA. What was that? What was the network they were on? They were on
TNN.
like TNN. Yeah, the Nashville
Network.
You know what I mean?
I never understood that. Yeah,
but again, I mean, they have built such a brand that people will find them. People will find them, and they'll figure it out. I mean, so they will find them, and again, the loyalty to the brand is, it's more than just the wrestlers themselves. Like the brand loyalty, again, they put on a live event unlike anybody else. Like they put on an event unlike anything else that's out there, and they know how to do live events better than just.
Oh, I totally agree. Hey, okay. All right, we good? Hello. Did we stop the camera?
Nope.
There we go.
There
we go.
Yeah.
No, you are good.
I hit a button and have fat fingers and stuff. So
I got the same issue. Don't feel bad. So we're gonna I wanted to throw some questions at you because I got people messaging me, but also a specific question. If a house is burning and your daughter Becky Lynch, Rhea, and Orrin was there, who would you can only save 3. Who are you saving?
Well, you said my daughter, so that would be number 1.
So number 1, Rhea.
Okay, then Rhea.
Rhea, Becky Lynch, or Orrin.
Oh, certainly Becky Lynch and Rhea. Yeah, I mean, Orrin's got.
So we got to let Orrin die. Yeah. You're burning up, Orrin.
Sorry, Orrin, but I mean, listen, we'll cook marshmallows over you. I mean, so
you paid the sacrifice. I would crack up every time you always ask it, and you hear Orrin. He's killing me off again. I loved it when you and Hugh were doing the show too. I mean, you and Randy also. So you've had some fun people to work with.
Oh, absolutely. I love those guys. I mean, I'm nothing but friends with those guys. Like Randy and I are good friends. Hugh and I are good friends. I mean, so I've enjoyed all the people I've worked with. I've in all honesty, like I can't say is that I've worked with anybody bad at the station. Like I've enjoyed everybody, and I'm just kind of that way. I mean, I can get along with just about anybody, but I mean, I've not. Well, maybe Mark James, but I mean, outside of that, maybe outside of that, I mean, but no, I mean, I've by and large gotten along with everybody at the station.
Oh man, that's awesome. See, and you've been there for ever, and I want to say thank you for meeting me at the Falcons game. You were doing the pregame stuff, and me and my buddy, we just walked up to you, talked wrestling for a little bit before we had to go back in there. But I mean, so the question: what do you think about with the Falcons right now? I mean, what is your overall thing with Ra? And he's our coach, and then we got Kirk Cousins. I remember seeing a GIF of a throw up, but I kind of felt the same way too. But I wanted to ask you, what did you think about all this?
I mean, I get why they went with Kirk Cousins, because you have to have a competent quarterback to win in the NFL. I don't know that Kirk Cousins is a winner. Was he the best quarterback probably available? Sure. But when you pay a quarterback $45 million, you better win. I mean, you better win. Like I don't want to hear excuses about, we got to have this or that. No, when you make the investment in quarterback, it's because your franchise is ready to win and turn the corner. Like the reason that the Kansas City Chiefs give Pat Mahomes $400 million is because they're one of the best, organizations in the NFL. So when you start getting into the quarterback sweepstakes, like say what you will about Matt Ryan, but the reason you pay him so much money, and people are always be like, oh, he's not worth all that. Well, yeah, the franchise never had better success than when they were under the Matt Ryan regime. I mean, he took us to the Super Bowl. We went to multiple NFC conference title games with Matt Ryan. I mean, he was the big reason why they were as successful as what they were, a franchise that had not had back-to-back winning seasons and all this kind of stuff. So I get why you pay a quarterback that kind of money, but when you haven't built the success with the roster that you have, I don't know that paying $45 million for a quarterback makes a whole lot of sense. I mean, again, I'm rooting for Kirk Cousins because I want the Falcons to do well. I want them to win a Super Bowl. I just have my questions about, Kirk Cousins had a chance to make two franchises. Like he's not been with just one franchise. He's been with two different franchises, and it's not like either one of those franchises were, Super Bowl contenders and stuff. I mean, so I don't know. I mean, I'll root for him, and I like him, and I think he's a good dude. And I mean, like it's nothing personal. It's just you have to have a guy who can win at that position, and
you got to see it. You got to see it happen. I mean, you got to see it.
Right.
I mean, we've been living as Falcon fans on what ifs for way too long, and I mean, and like you said, Mariota was our quarterback. We were behind him because it's logos. It's the logo before the player.
Yeah,
so,
and look, I mean, look. You don't expect to win with Marcus Mariota when you have a quarterback that is just kind of off the scrap heap. But you're paying Kirk Cousins you're paying Kirk Cousins like he's a legitimate top guy in the business. Yeah. Okay, the results have to come with that though. Like at some point, it can't just be he throws touchdowns and he throws for 4,000 yards. Yeah, but is our franchise better? Like how good is our franchise? I mean, listen, say what you will about Kirk Cousins in Minnesota. Case Keenum took him to an NFC title game.
Yeah.
So again, I mean, and I'm just saying that from the standpoint of, Case Keenum took him every bit as far as what Kirk Cousins did. So you have to, you just when there's that expectation at that position and you pay a guy that kind of money, it has to have the results that come along with it. And again, we'll see how many years he's here. Yeah. I mean, it's just and look, when you've made the investments that you have on your offense and things like that, okay. I mean, we better be a dynamic offense because I mean, if people are going to tell me we're only a quarterback away, okay, then things better happen. Like it has to come together. And I'm I'm not saying Kirk Cousins has to win a Super Bowl this year or whatever, but at some point, like there has to be some expectation about, okay, can this guy get it done for a franchise? And can he be a guy that can lead you to the promised land? Well, he's had 2 chances with franchises, and you can put all the blame in the world and all this. Well, the Redskins or this or Minnesota or this like that. Okay, well, how could have? I mean, again, we've been no better than the Redskins or Minnesota over the last few years. Our organization hasn't been any better. I mean, we've had the same kinds of struggles and stuff like that. And it's again, I want to believe in it. And I'm rooting for it. But let's see it. Like it's like show me that we're going to be that much of a better organization and franchise with Kirk Cousins at our quarterback.
And by the way, real quick, Tidy from Atlanta Bird Gang, thank you, Tidy, about hitting the like button. And Dixon Way, thank you for also saying that. But also, Tidy's saying if we win three or more and playoff games under Kurt in 2 years, I'd call it a success. I mean, it's like this. He's just got to perform. That's how I see it.
Yeah. I mean, so here's my question. Like, what's our goal? Like, what's our goal? I mean,
it has to be playoffs.
Do you want to win? Is winning, a cup? And I bring this up about the Braves, for instance. Okay, yes, the one World Series is fun and it was great and things like that, but compared to some of the other organizations in Major League Baseball, has it been the ultimate success? I mean, we could talk about being in the World Series, stuff like that, but again, the reason you play sports is to win, to win championships, and to be acknowledged as the best that you are. At some point, I mean, like all of this stuff, when you have $45 million quarterbacks and this and that, like at some point it has to, the rooster, what is it, the roosters come calling, like you have to have the ultimate success. Like there has to be the ultimate success. And I know Arthur Blank wants the ultimate success, and he's not going to shy away from putting a Super Bowl contender. I get all of that. Yeah. But at some point, like it has to happen. Like at some point, there has to be a parade down Peachtree Street for the organization, or it's just like, okay, well, we spent a bunch of money and never got it done. Okay, well, I mean, so I don't know. I mean, I'm hopeful for Kirk Cousins. I don't necessarily have a problem with it. I'm not the biggest Kirk Cousins fan, just because he's had 2 organizations. Again, 45. When you have a quarterback that's on his 3rd organization in 4 years.
Yep.
And you're paying him like he's Pat Mahomes or something like that. Then there has to be an expectation that comes along with that. Like again, those.
I think it's fair for fans to actually have expectations of your team.
Yeah, sure.
And if you put that kind of a money in a quarterback, you should expect to win. You shouldn't expect to go, well, we might just do well. No, then you're just wasting money. You can give me the money, and I'll. Just go down
it's the NFL is so quarterback reliant. Yeah, and I know everybody says, well, you have to have this and you have to. I get that, but you're not going to win in the NFL without a competent quarterback, unless you're like you can win in Baltimore when they had who was the guy that took them to the Super Bowl?
Trent Dilfer and Joe Flacco. Trent Dilfer. Flacco.
You can get to a Super Bowl with a Trent Dilfer when you have one of the greatest defenses in the history. Like again, you can overcome some things, but again, no one's going to accuse the Falcons of being the greatest defense in the history of the NFL or this or that. So you have to have a quarterback in today's NFL to overcome some of your deficiencies and shortcomings. And that's the most important position. And not just being like a fantasy quarterback that puts a lot of stats up, you have to be a guy that can win games. And, I'm not as convinced that Kirk Cousins can do it, but I'm hopeful. Like, again, he's got a lot of weapons, and if it, again, he wants to be here. So I'm excited and I'm hopeful, and I'm ready to get to another Super Bowl. Like I'm ready for my next Super Bowl.
Yeah. All right. Question, because we're talking about this. So in the draft, I'm not going to ask you about tight ends. I ain't talking about receivers. I don't care. Let's talk pass rushers. Out of the three, Dallas Turner, Latu, and Verse, who's the guy that you would take if you're drafting?
I'm not even saying necessarily at 8, but I'm a big fan of Jared Verse. Like I'm a big fan of his. Like I think he's a very productive player, and there's just something about that his production at Florida State. Like I think he's going to translate to the NFL very well. And I may be completely wrong about that, and I'll own it, but I'm just a big fan of Jared Verse. I was a big fan of his in college, and I think he's a disruptive player. And if he can build off of that, he'd be the guy that I would take. Like me personally, like I think Jared Verse is the guy. Like that guy is a pure pass rushing guy, and we need more of those guys. We need more of that. So I'm a big fan of Jared Verse. Like he'd be my guy, even if I had to trade back, or if I stayed at 8. Like he'd be my guy that I would pick.
Oh, I would be trading back, especially if there's a quarterback at 8. I'd be trading down just so I can get more picks and get a Jared Verse. I'd rather get Verse over Turner. That's been the way I've seen it. Latu, I would go with him if they took Verse, but that's how I would be. Big ups to Tidy. He also said after season, Kurt won't be top 10 highest paid. QB pays off I got it. And goal is always Super Bowl, and I try to be realistic. I get that. But I think it is fair because they made it very clear they're ready to go for the division. They want to win. If saw Raheem when he said to the team. But go ahead.
I mean, don't underestimate this fact. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They have an owner that is like, what is he? If he's not 80, I mean, he's getting into that point.
Mm-hmm.
He's had prostate cancer. Like their owner wants to win. And there's only so many more years of, hey, I can sit back and just kind of build things. He wants to win. I mean, that's the big thing is they have an owner that wants to win and will invest into winning. Now, that's not always maybe they don't always make the right decisions and stuff, but I don't question Arthur's, desire to win. And I think he's going to do everything possible that he thinks can be done to, bring that championship and that Super Bowl home. And again, you start running out of time and stuff. Like you start to get to a point where you have more years behind you than you do in front of you. And I think that Arthur, I'm not saying he's pushing the panic button, but just again, it's a matter of you have to find that right formula, and you're trying to find a way to finally bring home a Super Bowl championship to the city. And look, again, I mean, we deserve it and all that good stuff, but again, we have to win it. I mean, at some point, your legacy. I mean, your legacy is built about what you ultimately do from a winning and success standpoint, right? I mean,
you could be a Russell Wilson who went to a new team and failed, or you could be Matt Stafford, go to a new team and win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, again,
it happens.
Matt Stafford's legacy completely changed with that Super Bowl. Like he was a successful quarterback, and he was a top tier quarterback, and he'd been to the playoffs multiple times. But when you win the ultimate prize in the NFL, your perception has changed. I mean, the perception changes, about you. And so, again, I'm hopeful, and I think we got a lot of good things in place. But I mean, let's see it play out. I mean.
All right, we got a question. So Tidy is asking, in your opinion, Chuckery, should the Falcons draft their perceived quarterback of the future? What do you think?
Well, if they let's just say for argument's sake that they draft a pass rusher in the first round.
Okay.
I mean, once you get past like the first or second round, my personal opinion is, your main quarterbacks come from the first round. Like look at your main top tier quarterbacks. I don't care where at in the first round, stuff like that. But I've got no problem if you want to draft a Michael Penix like in the second round or something like that.
Okay.
If you're, it's hard to say quarterback of the future right now because You have a guy that's going to make $45 million. You know, I mean, when you have a quarterback that's making $45 million, I don't care if it's for a year or two. Listen, you only have a guy. If you draft a guy outside the first round, you only have him for 4 years, and so you can't afford to, you know, make your determination with just 1 year of service under his belt. So, and I don't know that Penix is a first round guy, and I'm not saying draft him at 8 or whatever like that, but okay. I mean, if you want to draft a quarterback in second round, like a Penix or something like that, okay. I mean, I'm all in for that. But at some point, you know, we're going to have to take that draft capital and draft our next Matt Ryan. I mean, you know, Matt Ryan wasn't a very popular pick when they drafted him at number 3. Like, that was not a popular pick.
No,
I remember that.
Yeah.
I mean, that was. I mean, it was. Oh gosh, who was the defensive player that everybody wanted?
Glenn Dorsey.
Yeah, Glenn Dorsey. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean that was the name. Oh, we gotta get Glenn Dorsey. When they drafted Matt Ryan, it's like, well, this guy's not that good at Boston College.
I remember. Okay, I was cool. Because if I'm not mistaken, 7-9 Zone was covering the Falcons, and they did the draft. And I remembered the guy that was announcing the pick. His tone when it was Matt Ryan was so much different when it was Glenn Dorsey. And I think it was like, oh, God, I want to say Chuck Oliver, but he was just so aggravated. They did not get Glenn Dorsey. They got Matt Ryan, and he was just like throwing his hands
off. And look, I mean, you know, Matt wasn't a hugely successful quarterback per se at Boston. I mean, it's not like he led Boston College to a national title game and, you know, he was throwing, you know, 5,000. I mean, like,
he was a solid quarterback, but he wasn't.
It was a really good quarterback. But, you know, again, I mean, in hindsight, that's arguably one of the top 1, 2, 3 picks that the Falcons ever made. Like, he brought more stability to the franchise than honestly any other player. Like, honestly, like, if you look at the stability that he brought for all of his good things and his warts and his flaws and however you want to perceive Matt Ryan, he brought stability to the most important position. And you felt like if we had a decent roster around him, like, okay, we could be a successful franchise. And, you know, again, we were in the Super Bowl. We went to multiple conference championship games. You know, he gave us our first back-to-back winning seasons and stuff. And, you know, again, you can. There's a lot of people I know that don't like Matt Ryan, and you know, well, he couldn't do this and he couldn't do that. Well, most quarterbacks don't do some of the things that Matt Ryan does. I mean, I think the number is what is it? I think that the number I looked up. There's 40. There's been 48 Super Bowls played. Is that what the last one was? Okay, and I think there's only 23 quarterbacks that have won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Because again,
that's a rare number.
Bradshaw won 4 Super Bowls. Pat Mahomes has won a couple of 2 or 3 Super Bowls, whatever it is. Yep. So again, I think in the history of the NFL, there's only like 23 guys or something ridiculous like that have actually won the Super Bowl. You know, for all the different quarterbacks and all these different things, it's only like 20. Because again, when you start taking away, you know, in 48 Super Bowls, just how many guys have won? You know, Staubach's got 2, Bradshaw's got 4. Brady's got what 4 or 7 or 6, whatever the number, 7 or whatever the number is. I mean, again, when you start looking at how many different quarterbacks have won the Super Bowl, like that number is not very high. That's a very exclusive club to say you won a Super Bowl. Not talking about taking a team to Super Bowl. I mean, talking about winning it. So and that changes your whole perception. And it felt like that with the Matt Ryan era. We were on the cusp of doing that. Now, it didn't happen, and I get all of that, but go look at how many quarterbacks have actually won the Super Bowl. It's kind of like surprising when you look at it, like, wait, there's only been that many guys that have won the Super Bowl, you know?
And you look at who won them. It's like who's who. You know, if you kind of look at it, the Falcons, when after 2016, and everyone will say they should have fired, you know, Shanahan and all that. I will always say the biggest mistake they made was not trying to keep some of the assistants from Shanahan's offense to be with Matt versus, you know, Sarkisian. but that was just my, from a distance.
Well,
view,
look, they bought into Dan Quinn, had transformed the franchise and stuff. And look, I when you're a coordinator in the NFL and things like that, you're going to move on to greener pastures. I mean, that's what Dan did. I mean, Dan moved on from being, a Super Bowl defensive coordinator with the Seahawks to getting the Falcons head coaching job. I mean, that's what guys want to do. So again, when you have the opportunity to get, to take over that, like, you're never going to pay an offensive coordinator $10 million a year in the NFL like that. That's just not going to happen. I mean, so you'll pay a head coach that, but you won't pay an offensive coordinator that. So again, guys get restless and they want to move up and they want to try their skill set at winning, the ultimate prize and see if they can do it.
And to take it also from here too, you're asking someone to say, okay, this is the guy, but yet, Shanahan did get an offer to the 49ers. So it wasn't like he was going to Timbuktu, I mean, he was going somewhere where a lot of guys want to be.
Right. He wasn't going like Carolina. I mean, so I get that. But I mean, again, you want when you want teams to be coming after your guys. That means you've been successful, right? I mean, if you have a lot of interest, if you have a lot of interest in your coordinators because you've been successful, that's why they come after your coordinators, is because you've been so good. But again, I mean, I was never a big Dan Quinn fan.
Neither was I.
I've made that known. Like, and John, it's not personal. I mean,
no. But your rants on his slogans were always my favorite. I would be the guy that would tweet you going, Sergeant Slogan, Professor Frost tips.
Yeah, I mean, and again, it's not personal with Dan. I mean, I don't think he was. I don't think Dan was that good of a head coach. He had a quarterback. He had a quarterback and an offensive coordinator that came together and had a magical season. And that's as much of a testament to Matt and what Kyle Shanahan did. But again, I don't think Dan was that great of a head coach. I mean, but again, I mean, listen, I mean, you ride your players that you have, out there, and we'll see what happens, from there. I mean, Dan's getting his, other opportunities and stuff now, so we'll see what Dan can do. I mean,
we'll see. We'll see him later in the year. So, all right, we're going to ask Chuckery this one here. So Stetson Bennett, has he taken over Herschel Walker as the most important Georgia Bulldog in history? And does he think UGA could win it all 2024?
I don't think anybody will ever replace Herschel. Like, I don't, there's just something, Heisman Trophy, and just, there's just so much around the aura of Herschel. Like, there's just so much about it. I don't think anybody will ever surpass his legacy. People will talk about him 30 years from now. As much as they talk about him now, like they'll still talk about him 30 years, from now. So I still think he's the most important Bulldog in Georgia history. Do I think UGA can win it all in 2024? Yeah. I mean, you have to have great quarterback play nowadays. I mean, I think they have the head coach. I mean, they have the head coach that can get it done. They have the recruiting that can get it done. I mean, they have all the pieces and parts. I mean, again, I'm a big fan of Kirby Smart, and not just because of what he's done, but I mean, I think he's a great coach. I mean, I think he's a tremendous coach, and again, you got to get your quarterback right. But there's no reason why Georgia can't win it all in 2024. I mean, again, it's not like they're going to start off, being picked to be a 6-6 team or whatever like that. They're going to be one of the best teams in all of America.
I agree. I mean, it's Georgia. I mean, my thing is this: is you got the coach, you got the quarterback, and everyone comes together at the right time, you're good. You at least get a chance. So we'll just wrap. I mean, John, we talked about wrestling. We're talking about football and all that. The one question I have is, like, when it comes to the Braves, do you think we're at this point that if we don't win another championship, we're repeating history with in the 90s, where we got that one championship and everyone goes, look at that one championship, but they don't ever look at the where we missed and we didn't get more. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, maybe. I mean, time will tell about all of that. I mean, look, have the Braves been one of the great organizations over the last, 25, 30 years? No doubt. I mean, they've been, they've been one of the great organizations. Has it translated the way that fans probably wanted to? Probably not. I mean, would you? I mean, let me be it like this, and I'm not saying like from a personal standpoint, but if you grew up a Yankees fan, have you been happy with the success of your franchise? Have you over the last 30 years and stuff like that? Like, again, everything is relative, right? When you're a fan of a team, like I'm an unabashed Cleveland Indians fan,
Okay.
And we had our great run in the mid 90s and stuff like that, and couldn't get it done, and I'll probably never live to see a World Series. And I remember the Cubs series from a few years ago, and it's like, okay, I'm like I anticipate like I'm never going to see the Indians win a championship. So at least we've got that, and that's happened a couple times, for the Braves and stuff like that. But again, they're one of the great organizations in Major League Baseball over the last 30, 40 years or whatever like that. They don't have anything to apologize for. I mean, could it have been more? Yes. I mean, it could have been more. I mean, we can go down the list of just whatever it was, 96, 99. I mean, okay, I get all that and I understand that, but they've been one of the really great run organizations, in Major League Baseball. And, again, are they the best organization? No, because, they're not, they're not the king of the mountain, on a regular basis. But again, they're one of the great organizations on all of Major League Baseball. You don't have to feel bad about being a Braves fan or anything like that. Like that organization has done well, and they've produced a lot, and given so many great moments. So again, I would listen as an Indians fan. I wish I had my World Series. Like I wish I had a World Series. I wish I could say, I'd have to go back to I think it was it 1954 the last time the Indians won a World Series. I mean, again, so I'd have to be 100 years old or whatever. I mean,
I wouldn't be a thought of my dad's eye.
yeah. I mean, so again, I mean, they're one of the great organizations, and they continue to be one of the great organizations, and that's one of the best testaments that you can give is just how consistently good that they have been. There's not been over this last 30 years very many bumps and dips, as far as how bad that they've been and stuff. So again, I have all the respect in the world for what their organization has been and what they continue to be, and how good that they are. I mean, they're one of the great organizations in Major League Baseball over this last 34 years. That's a true. I mean, that's a pretty good testament when you can say you've been that good over that long a period of time.
Oh yeah. Well, let's leave on this one. The Atlanta Hawks finally decided to give us a mercy ending and decided to lay an egg in Chicago. So the question I have for you, I mean, I'm not going to ask should Trey or DJ leave, but when are we going to just say, because we're going to hear the following about how we are just there, we'll spend if we need to, but when can we actually look at the leadership and maybe go, take the idiot's son out and take your GM away and get someone that actually can do a job? Because it feels like it's way above players. Because when you see this trend, all the trends have been doing is going downward. We haven't succeeded since that year of 2021 where we made it to the conference finals. What do you think, man?
I mean, boy, the Hawks are the Hawks are a very interesting organization. Like I'll say like this. I'm a big fan of DeJounte Murray, and I hope the Hawks keep him. Like there's been a lot of chatter about whether or not the Hawks, would move on from him and stuff like that. I'm a big fan of DeJounte Murray. I'm also a big fan of Trae Young. I mean, and look, there are not that many truly unique players in the NBA. Like there's, there are a lot of stars and stuff, but there's not a lot of, whether it's Durant's and Durant is, I mean, even, again, I mean, say what you will about Kevin Durant, and you can point fingers at some of his legacy and stuff like that, but when they needed him to step up in Golden State, like he was that guy. But there really aren't as many Steph Curry's, LeBron James, those kind of players and stuff that are in the NBA. I mean, there's a lot of star power, but just building that championship caliber franchise. I mean, just to be able to say, you're a champion, like that's hard to find that group of guys. I mean, so, listen, I don't want to move on from Trey. I don't want to move on from DeJounte Murray. I don't even want to move on from I can't really put my finger on what this roster needs. Like you can speculate on all these kinds of things, but at some point your DNA has to take over. Like your DNA has to, overachieve and get the ultimate success. And I don't know, for whatever reason, I don't think it's a Trey problem. I don't think it's a coaching problem. I don't know. Like I can't put my finger on, again, we'd all love to do that, but I just can't put my finger on why the Hawks can't figure out their ultimate success or build a contender year in, year out. I mean, I don't think it's a Trae Young problem. I don't think it's a DeJounte Murray problem. I don't think it's a Quinn Snyder, problem. Like, I don't know that it's all of that. There's just something about the DNA of this Hawks basketball team that just can't seem to figure it out. Like, there's no reason for them in today's NBA to just barely make their way into the playoffs. Like, there's not that many great teams, and we got a lot of stars on our team, and just, I don't know. They're a frustrating group. I mean, to watch at times. Like they really frustrate you because you think you can have so much more, but they just always seem to find a way to let you down in all of it. So,
we got Larry from the Dixon Way. He commented earlier, and he'll do live commentary through the podcast, and he'll just talk about the game and everything. But it's always how we feel is. You just feel let down. You just feel like when you want to believe, because I believe Hawk fans want to win and want to compete. But this year after year, and it's just like we hear the same thing over and over, and we're just like going, "When are you going to fix it?" It's kind of like what you would say. Eventually you have to address the cancer. You can't just put a new earring on and make it think it's pretty. You got to do some dig down work.
Well, I don't know that. Like, I don't think the Hawks have a Trae Young problem or DeJounte Murray problem, or like I don't know. Like, I can't put my finger on why. And I know everybody's going to have an answer for, well, they got to have this or they got to have that. Yeah, but again, if your DNA, has a lot to do with it. And I'm just saying that like as a general, like I'm not talking about your specific DNA, but just, the makeup and the chemistry, and just, having that right blend of players, like there's just something about it. And, we'll see. I mean, again, obviously just kind of a lackluster end to the season and stuff. And, they'll regroup and draft and this and that. It's like, okay, and we'll go back to being, a middle of the road type of organization. And okay, we'll kind of go from there and we'll root them on and have fun with it. But I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. You're not getting prime LeBron James to come here, and you're not getting this and that or whatever like that. So again, you have to make it work with what you have. And, hopefully at some point it all comes together, whether it's Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, whatever. But I don't know that there's just a simple, easy answer to just kind of solve everything for the Atlanta Hawks.
I got you, man. Well, I think we've been together for a while, and I really appreciate you doing this big time.
Appreciate it, brother.
Man. And maybe we could do this again if you like, talk some wrestling and, have some fun. But, man, plug what you can. Tell people where to find you so we can hear you more.
You can follow me on Twitter at JMCH316. I mean, hopefully we'll be back sooner than later on the radio, but just follow me on Twitter at JMCH316. So I really appreciate it, man. Appreciate you having me on the show, and look forward to talking with you again.
Yes, man. So much. Thank you so much. I appreciate you so much.
Thanks, buddy. Yep.
For doing this
see you,
for
buddy.
me.
Be good.
Take
man.
care.
Yep.
You too, man.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Well, guys, I want to thank you all for being a part of this. Want to say big ups to Jon Chuckery for being on our show. 33 people. Thank you all so much. Please like, please subscribe. And guys, thank you all so much for being a part. This has been a fun show. We got a lot of questions answered. And please check us out Tuesday. We'll have the Raw and SmackDown review. And also give me a like on at CW28 here on YouTube. And I appreciate everybody so much. Thank you guys for making this show very much interactive. And we'll talk to you then. And I want to thank Ladarius and Jerry for being a part, as well as Jon Chuckery again. Real quick before I leave, let me thank everyone that messaged. Arrogant Thinker podcast. That's Dennis and Miss Sheila, Sharon and everyone, and Ron, I believe. So thank you all so much. Tip, thank you so much. RUA, thank you so much for being a part. Gamers Slam Zone, that's Mr. Miner. Thank you so much. Check down. I appreciate you coming in and checking us out. Also, Keeley, thank you so much for checking us out. iTest, thank you so much for checking us out. I appreciate you all being a part of the show. Thank you again. Please check us out Tuesday on CW. I'll try to get some more guests and we'll have some fun. I'm out.